At the outbreak of the war, Guinness was the largest brewery in the world, and the company actively encouraged its workers to enlist for war service. On 26 August 1914, an ordinary general meeting of the directors and shareholders of the company was held at Finsbury House in London. Edward Cecil Guinness, the chairman of the board of directors, announced that posts would be held open for any employee called up for war service or volunteering for war service. He also announced that half salary or half wages would be paid to their families throughout the war. The Guinness Storehouse website has a genealogical archive which can be searched for basic details relating to employees such as date of birth, joining date and age, date of death, department and occupation, and spouse name. From experience, it does not include details of office staff and cannot be searched by department. Also, it is not clear whether the occupation recorded was at the start of the man's employment or at its end. I've used this resource alongside other resources in preparing this talk. After the war, those men who returned expressed their gratitude to the company for its philanthropic attitude by presenting the directors with an illuminated address on 16th February 1920. We, the employees of Messrs. A. Guinness, Son and Company Limited, who left their employment to serve in His Majesty's forces in the late European War, hereby tender our sincere thanks to the directors and board of the firm for their unfailing generosity and kindness to us, our wives and families, during our absence on service, and for their patriotic action in keeping open and reinstating their employees in the positions they occupied previous to the war. We assure the directors and board of our grateful loyalty and devotion to the interests of the company. A duplicate address was prepared to enable a number of employees who had not had the opportunity to subscribe to the address in the first instance. The two addresses were installed in the boardroom at St. James's Gate in Dublin. I've not been able to locate any images of either of the illuminated addresses. The company also produced two illuminated parchment rolls of honour with differing details. Michael Pegham drew my attention to this roll of honour, which records the names of 594 men, some of whom are not included on a later roll of honour. The earlier roll of honour is organised alphabetically and includes 3 civilians killed during the Easter Rising who are not recorded in the Guinness archive as having been employees of the firm. When the discrepancies between the two rolls of honour are merged, potentially 662 men served in the Great War. This is the second roll of honour, on which the names of 645 men are recorded by department. The details match the roll of honour book, which was produced in December 1920. Just to give you some statistics from this roll, 94 men were commissioned officers, 33 were senior non-commissioned officers, 171 were non-commissioned officers, and 347 were other ranks. 76 served with naval forces, 22 served with air forces, and 542 served with regiments of the British Army. 119 men served in medical positions, 80 with the Royal Army Medical Corps, and 39 with naval forces. 103 Guinness employees died during the war, 74 were killed in action, 16 died of wounds, 9 died of illness, 1 was killed in a bombing accident, 1 died as a prisoner of war, and the cause of death is not specified for 1 fatality. 95 fatalities were from the Army, 5 were naval, and 3 were airmen. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission records that 47% of the Guinness fatalities have no known grave. It also commemorates 81 of the 103 fatalities on the Western Front, 7 in the Balkans, 2 in the Middle East, 6 in England, 1 in Northern Ireland, and 6 in the Republic of Ireland. The Guinness Roll of Honour records that 73 Gallantry and Service Awards were made to 47 former employees, with 12 men receiving more than 1 award. The Distinguished Service Order was awarded to 3 men. The Distinguished Conduct Medal was awarded to 6 men. The Military Cross was awarded to 9 men. The Military Medal was awarded to 16 men, and 18 men were mentioned in dispatches. 2 employees serving with the Irish Guards are recorded as having received the Distinguished Service Medal. However, during the Great War, the United Kingdom only issued DSMs for bravery at sea. The introduction to the Roll of Honour book, published in December 1920, ends with these words: "More than 800 servants of the company took their places in the imperial forces, scattered over the world, afloat and ashore, with lofty tasks or lowly. All rendered honourable service, and more than 100 laid down their lives. To those who fell, we render reverent homage. To those who survived, we offer this small but nonetheless sincere expression of heartfelt gratitude." I had access to the Roll of Honour book held by the Museum of Orange Heritage in Belfast, and have transcribed the details recorded in the book and cross-checked the details with the second illuminated Roll of Honour. I have not been able to reconcile the recorded names with the figure of 800 company servants mentioned at the end of the book. For the purposes of this talk, I will be using the details in the Roll of Honour book and the later illuminated Roll of Honour. 2 of the company directors served in the Great War. Viscount Elvedon served with the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve and was an aide-de-camp to His Majesty King George V from 1916 to 1918. However, I'm going to focus on the other director. Walter Edward Guinness was born on 27th March 1880 at St. Stephen's Green to Edward Cecil Guinness and Adelaide Maria Guinness. He was educated at Eton and was commissioned into the Loyal Suffolk Hussars as a second lieutenant in November 1899. The following February, he was promoted to lieutenant with the 44th Company and 12th Battalion of the Imperial Yeomanry. His company was posted to South Africa in March 1900, leaving London on board SS Cornwall. The Imperial Yeomanry made lightning raids on Afrikaner positions and skirmished ahead of advancing columns. At the end of May 1900, the Imperial Yeomanry assaulted the ridge at Doornkop, and Walter Guinness was wounded at Vitpoortjie. He was mentioned in dispatches and was awarded the Queen's South Africa Medal with 4 clasps: Cape Colony, Orange Free State, Transvaal, and South Africa 1901. In April 1902, he was promoted to the substantive rank of captain in the Suffolk Imperial Yeomanry, which was also known as the Duke of York's own Loyal Suffolk Hussars. In 1907, he was elected to the House of Commons as Conservative for the Bury St Edmunds constituency. Walter Edward Guinness held the rank of Major when he was deployed to Gallipoli with the Suffolk Yeomanry in October 1915, and was appointed as a Brigade Major in 25th Division in 1916. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Order for his actions during the Third Battle of Ypres in 1917, and the Bar to the DSO for his actions in the German Spring Offensive of 1918. He was also mentioned in dispatches in December 1917 and December 1918. The first DSO award was reported in September 1917, and the citation was published in the London Gazette on 8th January 1918. For conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty as Brigade Major. Previous to an attack, his reconnaissance and arrangements for the assault were excellent, and during the action itself he went forward and made a complete and thorough personal reconnaissance regardless of enemy shelling and rifle fire. He remained on an exposed position for 2 days, keeping in close touch with the situation under continuous shell fire, and by his prompt action on his own initiative, staved off at least one counterattack. The citation for the second DSO award was published in the London Gazette on 23rd July 1918. For conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty as Brigade Major throughout operations and during a subsequent retirement. He carried out continual reconnaissances under heavy shell fire and with an absolute disregard of danger, and on one occasion he personally assisted to re-establish a line leading forward men who had fallen back. His fine example and untiring energy and his reports throughout were invaluable. Walter Edward Guinness ended the war as a lieutenant colonel attached to the 66th Division. John Lumsden was born in Drogheda on 14th November 1869 to John Alexander Lumsden, a bank manager, and Florence Isabella Gordon McKean. He was educated in Dublin and Taunton, qualified as a medical doctor in 1894, and married Caroline Frances Kingscote on 17th March 1896 at St Nicholas Church of Ireland in Galway. The Guinness Brewery had always had a progressive attitude towards the care of its workforce. In 1870, the firm opened a medical dispensary to provide free consultations and medicines for sick workers and for their families. Dr. John Lumsden was appointed as Assistant Medical Officer at the Guinness Brewery in 1894 at the age of 25. Within 5 years, he was appointed as its Chief Medical Officer. He commenced a program to transform and expand the medical department. A new dispensary was added in 1907, a dental department in 1915, and a physiotherapy clinic in 1917. John Lumsden carried out a major public health study amongst the Guinness workforce, visiting the dwellings of over 1,700 employees. He began teaching first aid and promoting public health and welfare, which helped to improve the living conditions of many families across Dublin. In addition, he set up the St. John's Ambulance Brigade in Dublin and was appointed Superintendent of the St. James Gate Division. In November 1914, he was the highest ranking officer of the St. John Ambulance Brigade in Ireland. Lumsden was invested as a Knight of Grace of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem in 1915, and King George V made him a Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire for his services during the Easter Rising, as well as for his efforts in setting up St. John Ambulance in Ireland. He served as a Major with the Royal Army Medical Corps, being awarded the British War Medal and the Victory Medal. The first and sixth Guinness employees to die were brothers Thomas and John McDonough. Both men were recalled from the Army Reserve on 4th August 1914 and deployed to France on 13th August 1914 with 1st Battalion Irish Guards. Thomas and John were sons of Thomas McDonough, an engine cleaner, and Alice Durkin. Their father died from tuberculosis on 19th February 1898, and Alice married Thomas Woods on 16th October 1903 at Golden Bridge Church, and the family was living at Sarah Place in New Kilmainham in 1911. Thomas McDonough was born on 30th May 1889, and he enlisted with the Irish Guards on the 23rd of October 1908. He was recorded as being a labourer when he married Elsie Butler of Island Bridge on 31st October 1911 at Golden Bridge Church. He joined Guinness as a cleaner in the engineers department on 13th November 1911. Just over 4 weeks after landing in France, Thomas McDonough died of wounds at Colmier on 8th September 1914 at the age of 25 and is commemorated on the Laferte-sous-Jouarre Memorial in France. Elsie McDonough was living at Ray's Cottage in Island Bridge when she was awarded a dependence pension of 10 shillings per week with effect from 29th June 1915. This was increased to 20 shillings per week from 3rd February 1919. Elsie also received a war gratuity of £5 in September 1919, and the Commonwealth War Graves Commission records her address as 24 Pancras Square in London. John McDonough was born on 26th July 1890 and was recorded as being an engine driver when he enlisted with the Irish Guards on 22nd March 1909. He joined Guinness on 14th August 1912 and was employed as a labourer in the engineers department. He married Christine McMahon on 14th January 1914 at St Mary's Pro Cathedral. They had one son, John Thomas, who was born on 3rd September 1914, just 3 weeks after his father had arrived in France. John McDonough died of wounds on 28th October 1914, aged 24, and is buried in Ypres Town Cemetery Extension. Christine McDonough was awarded a dependence pension of 15 shillings per week with effect from 24th May 1915. That is £82 per week in current terms. Christina subsequently married Patrick Brooks, a plumber, on 16th June 1918 and was awarded a war gratuity of £5 in September 1919. The last Guinness War fatality was James Kennedy, who was born on 19th March 1888 and joined the company as a labourer at the Cook's Lane Maltings on 18th July 1911. He left the firm on 27th March 1915 to enlist with the Royal Dublin Fusiliers and was stationed at Victoria Barracks in Cork when he married Ellen Doyle of Montpellier Parade in Monkstown on 4th September 1915 at Blackrock Church in Dublin. He was posted to 1st Battalion on the Western Front after December 1915, and he died of influenza at a military hospital in Shropshire on 9th April 1919, aged 31, and is buried in the Dean's Grange Cemetery in Dublin. Michael Doyle was born on 25th November 1883 at Ashton Park in Monkstown to William Doyle and Mary Kavanagh. He joined the firm on 19th May 1898, and he was a member of the firm's branch of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade. He married Mary Slevin on 23rd January 1907, being an electrician's assistant. Their only child, Catherine Bridget, was born at John Dillon Street on 30th January 1912. Michael gave us his occupation as electric wiresman when he joined the Royal Navy on 6th August 1914, and he was a sick bay attendant on HMS Formidable. On 31st December 1915, the 5th Battle Squadron took part in gunnery exercises off the Isle of Portland and remained on patrol in the English Channel overnight. In the early hours of New Year's Day 1915, Formidable was torpedoed by German submarine U-24 and sank after 2 hours with the loss of 35 officers and 512 men. The delay between being hit and sinking allowed 157 men to be rescued in heavy seas. Michael Doyle was last seen hurling overboard anything that would float in order to help the men struggling in the sea. His body was not recovered, and he is commemorated on the Chatham Naval Memorial. His widow received a dependence pension of 15 shillings per week from June 1915, and that equates to approximately £82 per week in current terms. The firm purchased the steamer W.M. Barclay in 1913, and a new department, the Channel Steamer Service, was formed. The Barclay was built by the Ailsa Shipbuilding Company of Troon in 1898 for William M. Barclay and Sons, coal merchants, steamship owners and agents of Wellington Place in Belfast. She was later sold to the Belfast coal merchants John Kelly and Company before being purchased by Guinness. In 1914, she was requisitioned by the Admiralty to transport material for road building in France, but was returned to the Guinness Company in 1917. On 12 October 1917, the ship was transporting a cargo of stout from Dublin to Liverpool when she was torpedoed by German submarine UC-75 and sank 7 miles east of the Kish light vessel. 5 men from the crew of 14 were lost, and their names are commemorated on the Tower Hill Memorial in London. The remaining crewmen were rescued the following morning by the crew of SS Dunnet Head and taken back to Dublin. Whilst the Guinness Archive lists all 5 men as employees of the company, only able seaman Ernest Arthur Kendall is listed in the Guinness Roll of Honour. The other fatalities were ship's master Edward Gregory, 46, of Meadows Lane in Arklow, first engineer Alexander Corrie, 48, of Victoria Villas in Dublin, who is commemorated on family memorials in Belfast City Cemetery and Movilla Cemetery in Newton Ards. Second engineer Owen Francis Murphy, 27, of South Main Street in Wexford, and fireman Thomas Murphy, 29, of Lower Sheriff Street in Dublin. Ernest Arthur Kendall was born in Falmouth around 1877, and his father John was a carpenter. He was a sailor and living at Dalkey when he joined the firm on 22nd February 1914. He married Sarah O'Neill on 21st April 1914 at St. Joseph's Church in Glasgow, and they lived at Meany Place in Dalkey. One of the survivors was later interviewed about the incident. Thomas McGlue, the ship's cook steward, was in the galley making a cup of tea when the torpedo struck. He made his way in darkness up to the deck and managed to get into one of the lifeboats. He recalled the night saying the Barclay was doing her best to go down, but the barrels were fighting their way up through the hatches, and that kept us afloat a bit longer. In fact, it's the reason any of us got out of there. I was glad to get back to Baldoyle because I'd left my wife sick and was afraid that she'd hear about the torpedoing before I could get home. Thomas McGlue was born on 14th November 1882 at Baldoyle to Michael McGlue, a sailor, and Mary Ann Kane. He married Mary Catherine Rourke, on 6 September 1911 at Howth Church, and they lived at Warren Cottages in Baldoyle. He joined Guinness as a steward on 20th December 1914 and died in Baldoyle on 22nd March 1977 at the age of 94. One man from the Guinness factory died during the Battle of Jutland on 31st May 1916. Patrick Riley was born on 24th August 1880 at Dales in County Louth to John Riley and Catherine Gorman. The family was living at Strand Street in Clocker Head when he joined the Royal Naval Reserve on 1st October 1904. Patrick Riley joined Guinness on 1st December 1913 and was a labourer in the Engineers Department when he was recalled to active service on 4th August 1914. During the Battle of Jutland, HMS Invincible was attacked by 2 German ships, each of which fired 3 salvos. One shell penetrated the front of the Q turret and detonated the midships magazines. The ship was blown in half and sank in 90 seconds with the loss of 1,026 officers and men. Patrick Riley was 35 when he died and is commemorated on the Portsmouth Naval Memorial. John Riley received a war gratuity of £10 in July 1919, about £550 in current terms, followed by 3 naval prize money payments totaling £33 and 15 shillings between 1921 and 1923. This would total approximately £1,944 in current terms. 22 Guinness employees served with the Royal Flying Corps or the Royal Air Force, and 3 of them died. Benjamin George Beattie was born on 11th November 1894 at Breffni Terrace in Ringstown to Francis Rowland Beattie, a land agent, and Jane Sophia Clark. His father died on 5th August 1903, and his widowed mother was living at Sydney Avenue in Blackrock in 1911. Benjamin Beattie was a boarder at the Masonic Boys' School in Clonskey in South Dublin in 1911. He was working at the Guinness Trade Store in Cork when he received a General List commission in the British Army and was posted to the Western Front after December 1915. He was subsequently attached to the Royal Flying Corps and posted to 45th Squadron. Lieutenant George Henderson Walker and Second Lieutenant Benjamin George Beattie were flying a Sopwith Strutter aircraft when it was reported missing on 28th July 1917. They were confirmed as fatalities on 28 September 1917 and are commemorated on the Arras Flying Memorial in France. Several men named on the Roll of Honour had previously served in the armed forces before the Great War, one such man being Michael Devoy from the Engineers Department. He was born on 2nd December 1872 at Leinster Lodge in Athy to Thomas Devoy and Elizabeth Darling. He enlisted with the King's Royal Rifle Corps in July 1889, serving in India from 1891 until he was transferred to the Army Reserve in February 1897. He married Mary Ann Fitzgerald on 24th October 1897 at St Agatha's Church in North Dublin and joined Guinness on 9th September 1898 at the age of 25. The Guinness Archive records that he was a boat engine driver in the Engineers Department. He was recalled for active service in November 1899 and served with 1st Battalion King's Royal Rifle Corps in South Africa from December 1899 until July 1902. He was awarded a war gratuity of £5, worth approximately £262 in current terms. He was awarded the Queen's South Africa Medal with 6 clasps: Belfast, Cape Colony, Orange Free State, Tugela Heights, Relief of Ladysmith, and Laing's Neck. He was also awarded the King's South Africa Medal with the 1901 and 1902 clasps. In 1911, Michael and Mary Ann were living at Carrickfoyle Terrace in Usher's Quay. His occupation was recorded as stationary engine driver. They had 4 children under the age of 12 and subsequently had 2 further children, Catherine in 1911 and Henry in 1914. The family was living at Lady Lane when Michael Devoy re-enlisted with his old regiment on 17th April 1915 and was posted to 9th Battalion on the Western Front on 16th June 1915. He was appointed as a sergeant on 24th July and was killed in action 6 days later at the age of 42. He died less than 15 weeks after he had re-enlisted and 6 weeks after arriving in France. He has no known grave and is commemorated on the Meningate Memorial in Ypres. Mary Ann Devoy was awarded a dependence pension for herself and 5 children under the age of 16, with effect from 12th February 1916. From late March 1916, the rate was 28 shillings per week, which equates to approximately £130 per week in current terms. Mary Ann also received a war gratuity of £6 in August 1919, which equates to approximately £656 in current terms. There is one man who is recorded as a fatality on the Guinness Roll of Honour, but is not classified as a war fatality by Commonwealth War Graves Commission. William Gagan was living at Bellevue Buildings when he married Mary Lucas on 31st January 1887 at St. Catherine's Church. The Guinness Archive records that William Gagan was 24 when he joined the firm in September 1889, and that he worked as a labourer in the brew house department. William and Mary had 6 children, but only 4 were recorded as still living in the 1911 census when the family was living on Harold's Road. At this time, William was recorded as being 49 years old, and his occupation was recorded as attendant in restaurant. William Gagan gave his occupation as waiter and his age as 52 when he enlisted with 8th Battalion Royal Dublin Fusiliers on 15th October 1914, being made acting sergeant the following day. The attestation records that he had prior service with the regiment, having been discharged on the termination of his period of engagement in September 1892. The attestation also records that William was enlisting for home service, but that he was discharged as unlikely to make an efficient soldier on 21st November 1914. William Gagan died of pulmonary tuberculosis at Vauxhall Avenue in Dublin on 22nd February 1916, and the register of death records his age as 51 and his occupation as Sergeant RDF. The ages recorded in various civil and military sources indicate that he was born between 1862 and 1865. I'm going to look at some of the men who received gallantry awards, starting with the only recipient of a gallantry award who died during the Great War. James Plowman was born at Skirton in Lancashire on 15 September 1890 to Louis Plowman and Eliza Thomas, being the second of their 7 children. Their third child was born in 1892 in Dublin, at which time Louis Plowman was employed as a coach painter for the Great South Western Railway. James Plowman joined Guinness on 9th June 1913 and was a fitter in the engineers department. He was living at St. Patrick's Terrace in New Kilmainham when he married Isabella Small of Rosemount Terrace on 29th July 1914 in St. Paul's Church of Ireland. The Guinness Archive records that James left the company on 6th August 1914. This implies that he was in a militia or a reserve unit when he was called up for active service. He was deployed to France with the South Irish Horse on 17th August, received a commission with the Leinster Regiment just over a year later. In September 1917, the London Gazette reported that James Plowman had been awarded the Military Cross, the citation being published in January 1918. For conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty under heavy fire, in spite of severe casualties which included almost all of his officers and NCOs, he commanded his company throughout the action with exceptional ability, and at one period personally led an attack upon an enemy strong point, the capture of which was due to the confidence with which he inspired his men. Although wounded, he remained at duty until his battalion was relieved. James Plowman MC was serving with 2nd Battalion Leinster Regiment when he died of wounds on 29th April 1918, aged 27, and he's buried in the Saint-Roux British Cemetery at Hasbrouck in France. Several men received more than one gallantry award, including William Charles Disraeli Giffen, who was awarded the Distinguished Service Order and the Military Cross. He was born on 27th January 1881 at Main Street in Maryborough in Queen's County. His father, George, was a sergeant with the Queen's County Rifles, and his mother was Margaret Murtagh. William joined Guinness on 23rd November 1895 as a messenger in the officers department. In 1901, the family was living at George's Place in Rotunda, and William was recorded as being a clerk. In 1911, he was boarding with John and Alice Giffen at Clonliffe Road, and his occupation was recorded as Clerk Engineer Brewery. The Guinness Roll of Honour records William Giffen as belonging to the cask department. After completing his training with an officer cadet unit, William Giffen was appointed as a second lieutenant with 3rd Battalion Royal Irish Regiment in December 1916. He was posted to 2nd Battalion on the Western Front in January 1917 and was recorded as wounded in a casualty list published in the Dublin Daily Express on 14th June 1917. He was awarded the Military Cross and the citation was published in January 1919. His fine leading and conspicuous gallantry in covering the exposed flank of a neighbouring unit for over 2 days saved a critical situation. His position was one of great danger and difficulty, but he held on with a courage and determination worthy of very high praise. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Order in the 1919 King's Birthday Honours, for which no citation was published. Robert Frederick Switzer was born on 11th June 1884 at Cluneshanbally in County Sligo to John Thomas Switzer, a land steward, and Matilda Sparling, and the family was living at Gortine in Kings County in 1901. Robert joined Guinness in April 1910 and was a labourer in the brew house department. In 1911, he was living with his married sister, Bessie Glazier, and her family at North Dock Street. He married Catherine Fulham around 1911 and held the rank of sergeant when he was deployed to France with the South Irish Horse on 17th August 1914. In October 1916, the London Gazette reported that the Meritorious Service Medal had been awarded to Acting Squadron Sergeant Major Robert Switzer. The criteria for an MSM award altered between 1916 and 1917. In 1916, it was awarded to sergeant and warrant officers of the British Armed Forces for long and meritorious service or for gallantry not in the face of the enemy. The criteria was later extended to include men below the rank of sergeant. Whilst Robert Switzer had obviously enlisted before the war started, there is no evidence of extensive pre-war service. Therefore, it can be assumed that the award related to an act of gallantry not in the face of the enemy. On 1st September 1917, the South Irish Horse was converted into infantry and incorporated into 7th Battalion Royal Irish Regiment. Robert Switzer was gazetted as a second lieutenant with the Royal Irish Regiment in July 1918 and remained with the 7th Battalion. The London Gazette reported that he had been awarded a military cross in March 1919, with the citation being published in October 1919. For conspicuous gallantry and able leadership, during the night of 21st, 22nd October 1918, previous to the attack on Bussuit Chateau Wood, east of Saint-Genois, under heavy machine gun fire, he made 3 reconnaissances of the ground to be covered in the advance, bringing back valuable information. In the attack, he penetrated the enemy's lines to the furthest point, reached near the village, and when surrounded by the enemy, counter-attacked, inflicting losses, and held his position for 10 hours, finally getting in touch with his company. Robert Switzer was demobilised on 27th August 1919, and his medal index records his address as Killester Garden Village, which was the largest colony of ex-servicemen houses administered by the Irish Sailors and Soldiers Land Trust. He lived in the ISSLT bungalow until his death on 23rd August 1942 at the age of 58, having suffered from acute nephritis for 2 months. He had worked in the brew house for over 30 years, and the register of death records that he was a timekeeper, although a newspaper report on his death recorded that he was a senior foreman. He is buried in the graveyard at Clontarf Parish Church. The Guinness Roll of Honour records that 3 men were awarded the Croix de Guerre, but only specifies the awarding country for one of the recipients. Charles Robert Purdon Coote was born on 23rd January 1875 at Bearforest, Mallow, County Cork, to Charles Purdon Coote, gentleman, and Harriet Louisa Percival Maxwell. In 1901, he was living at Leeson Street Lower with his widowed mother, 2 sisters, and 5 servants. His occupation was recorded as landowner and brewer. He gained a commission with the Army Service Corps and held the rank of captain in the Army Service Corps when he was deployed to France in October 1915 with the 36th Ulster Division. Major Charles Robert Purdon Coote was mentioned in dispatches in May 1917 and awarded the Croix de Guerre by the King of the Belgians in February 1919. He married Noel Margaret Jeffson Stracey on 30 September 1933 in Sussex, and they had 5 children. Charles Robert Purdon Coote died at Mallow on 28 March 1954 at the age of 79. He left effects totaling £12,952, 9 shillings and 11 pence, which equates to approximately £377,347 in current terms. One of the Croix de Guerre recipients was also awarded the military medal. Peter Hanlon was born on 2nd January 1888, enlisted with the Leinster Regiment on 20th September 1904 and joined Guinness on 1st September 1911 at the age of 23. The Guinness Archive records that he was head messenger in the traffic department, and the Roll of Honour records that he was with the engineers department. Peter was recalled from the Army Reserve at the outbreak of the war and was posted to 2nd Battalion on the Western Front on 8 September 1914. He also served with 7th Battalion before returning to 2nd Battalion. On 4th November 1915, he married Mary Byrne of Peter Street at St. Nicholas Church on Francis Street. Their daughter, Mary Teresa, was born on 11th October 1917 at Peter Street. Peter Hanlon was serving with 2nd Battalion when he sustained gunshot wounds to the back and was admitted to number 31 ambulance train on 19th August 1916 before being evacuated to a base hospital in Rouen. He held the rank of sergeant when he sustained shrapnel wounds to the left leg on 23rd March 1918 when a gas shell exploded, and he was treated at 113th Field Ambulance and number 34 Casualty Clearing Station. In August of the same year, the London Gazette reported that Peter Hanlon had been awarded the military medal. Lance Sergeant Hanlon was discharged due to wounds on 10th July 1919 with Silver War Badge. He was awarded a 40% disablement pension at the rate of 16 shillings per week, plus a supplement of 7 shillings per week for a wife and 1 child under the age of 16. Peter Hanlon died of coronary heart disease on 7th February 1969 at the age of 80. The Guinness Roll of Honour records that 3 men were awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal and the Military Medal, 2 of them from the Cooperage Department and 1 from the Engineers Department. Thomas Tate was born around 1887 at St Leonard's in Midlothian to Martha Tate. He joined the firm on 21st June 1909 as a cooper and was boarding with Alexander Waters, also a Scottish-born cooper at Guinness, at Sword Street in Arronkey in 1911. The Waters family and Thomas Tate were listed as being Presbyterian. Thomas Tate enlisted with the Royal Dublin Fusiliers on 25th September 1914 and was posted to 8th Battalion on 1st October. Within 1 month, he had been promoted to Lance Corporal, and he was promoted to Corporal in January 1915 and then to Sergeant a month later. He was deployed to France with 16th Irish Division in December 1915. In August 1916, the London Gazette reported the award of the Military Medal, and he was promoted to Company Sergeant Major on 21st October 1916. The citation for the Distinguished Conduct Medal was published in the London Gazette in August 1917. For conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty during an advance over difficult and unknown country, after a position had been captured, he set a splendid example to his men by his total disregard of all danger under constant shell fire. It was largely due to his energy that the position was so well consolidated and prepared for defence. Thomas Tate was transferred to the 1st Battalion in March 1918 and suffered gas poisoning 2 months later. This resulted in his overseas service coming to an end. He was transferred to a depot unit the following month and was admitted to the Military Convalescent Hospital at Crown Hill in Plymouth in August 1918 before being transferred to the 3rd Battalion in September. He was transferred to the Class Z Army Reserve on 20th March 1919 and was living with the Waters family at Harold's Road in Arbour Hill when he was awarded a 20% disablement pension in respect of gunshot wounds to the head and gas poisoning. The rate was 7 shillings and sixpence per week from 21st March 1919, with a supplement of 6 pence per day in respect of the DCM award. His total pension was 11 shillings per week, or approximately £55 per week in current terms. And he also received a DCM gratuity of £20, which equates to £1,000 in current terms. The Guinness Archive records that he died on 4th July 1977. Joseph Hill was born on 23rd February 1884 to Andrew Hill and Mary Jane Daniel. His father died on 1st April 1891, and his mother married Patrick Sheridan, a widower, on 10th September 1900. Joseph Hill joined Guinness as a cooper in January 1911 when the family home was at Lower Wellington Street. He enlisted with the Royal Engineers and was deployed to the Western Front after December 1915, serving with 103rd Field Company. The London Gazette reported the award of the Distinguished Conduct Medal in June 1917. The citation was published the following month. For conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty, he has consistently performed good work throughout, particularly the rescuing of wounded men after the taking of a trench. Joseph Hill was living at Nash Street after being transferred to the Class Z Army Reserve on 4th March 1919, and the London Gazette reported the award of the Military Medal 2 months later. Joseph Hill was recorded as being a Guinness pensioner when he died of lung cancer at St. Lawrence's Hospital on 23rd November 1948, his age being recorded as 63. Going to finish off with a fairly complicated one. The Guinness Roll of Honour records that Sergeant William Carroll served with 7th Battalion Leinster Regiment and was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal and the Military Medal. The only matching entry in the Military Medal records was for a man with the regimental number 2834. The pension index card for 2834 William Carroll records his address as Chambers Street in 1918, and the later pension card records that his widow was Elizabeth Carroll and living at Carlon Road off the South Circular Road. However, although there is correlating information about William Carroll in various sources, there is also contradictory information relating to his age. The Guinness Archive records that William Carroll was 24 when he joined the firm in 1908. The archive records that he was a plumber's helper in the engineers department, that he was born on 18 September 1885, his date of death is 4th February 1951, and his spouse. The Guinness Archive records that William Carroll was 24 when he joined the firm in 1908. The archive records that he was a plumber's helper in the engineers department, that he was born on 18 September 1885, that he died on 4th February 1951, and that his spouse was Elizabeth Carroll. The British Army Medical Admissions records state that 2834 William Carroll received dental treatment in early 1916 at the age of 44, giving a putative year of birth of 1872. The report in Freeman's Journal in November 1917 records that William Carroll lived at Chambers Street and that he had served in the South African campaign, which would be unlikely for somebody born in 1885. The Silver War Badge Register records that 2834 William Carroll was discharged in January 1918 at the age of 36 years and 261 days, giving a putative year of birth of 1881. The William Carroll who died on 4th February 1951 was registered as being 56 years old, giving a putative year of birth of 1895. The following information relates to 2834 William Carroll, who enlisted with the Leinster Regiment on 29th April 1915 and was deployed to France as a corporal with 7th Battalion in December 1915. The London Gazette, published on 24th August 1916, reported that Corporal Carroll had been awarded the Military Medal. In November 1917, the Freeman's Journal reported that Lieutenant Colonel Shute, DSO, had decorated Corporal William Carroll with the Military Medal in a ceremony at Ballymullen Barracks in Tralee. Lieutenant Colonel Shute read the official record of the award. His Majesty the King has been graciously pleased to approve the award to this NCO for gallantry and devotion to duty in the field in France. Corporal Carroll, when on duty on 28th June at Lewes, brought in wounded men under heavy fire and took charge of a successful raid on the same date, the officer having been killed. The same article stated that Corporal Carroll had previously been awarded a parchment gallantry certificate by the General Officer commanding 16th Irish Division. As I could find no trace of a DCM being awarded to 2834 William Carroll, I think that the reference in the Roll of Honour relates to the Divisional Gallantry Certificate and not to the Distinguished Conduct Medal. 2834 William Carroll was serving with 4th Battalion and living at Chamber Street when he was discharged on 14th January 1918 with Silver War Badge. William Carroll was living at Carlin Road when he died of cerebral arteriosclerosis at Meath Hospital on 4th February 1951 and is buried in Glasnevin Cemetery.